Started.
Okay, so we are right now on Facebook Live as well, only on our Facebook KW Shares group. We're gonna have a slight delay, maybe a few seconds between our Blue Jeans broadcast to to the Facebook Live, just FYI. So we're gonna have a great content today. I want to be as efficient as possible to go over all the topics. You all got the email and text blast that we sent out with what we're going to discuss today. I'm going to have some slides on as well, just to go over some things. So we're not going to drop it, and we're going to dive deep into the content. We're going to hear from our brokers. We're going to hear from Jeff Kahn, attorney. We're gonna then jump to Phil Atwan, 1031 exchange specialist. He has a lot of great stuff to share with us. A lot of you had a lot of questions that you asked regarding that. We're gonna have our director of training from both offices sharing some great content, economy wise as well, and then. Team leader is going to share some tools that you can share, social media, and so on and so forth. So, also, whoever is on the Facebook Live, thank you for joining us as well. Drop your questions as we go if you have any. So let me just jump into the slide for a second. Richard, thumbs up if you can see my screen. Okay, thank you. All right, so we should do like a quote in the offices. So I thought that I'm just gonna stand up over here and I'm gonna read it for you guys. I thought it's gonna be it's a proper for pretty appropriate for this time. Tough times don't last. Tough teams do. Not ask you to be tough or tougher, but surely asking you to be patient and stronger, if you will, in what we are going through, what your clients are going through, what our family is going through, and through the unknown. And that's what we do in those frequent sessions and sharing information with one another. So we can tackle this together and do our best together as well. Okay, let's jump to right to our brokers, Rich Pisani, Richard Dascom. Guys, please share with us what you have. And I have some things that I can also show on the screen, unless you want to share your screens, whatever content you might want to share, specifically regarding the governor's guidance recently, showings, not showing in person, not in person, open houses. Now the MLSs, or at least our MLS over here in the Valley, dropped the option to add or even open houses. Talk to us about that, and then we're going to also have Jeff Kahn jump in.
Rich, you want to go ahead and start?
No, Richard, go ahead.
Okay.
Go for it.
All right. So CAR and our office policy is to no face-to-face meetings. Business is still getting done and can still get done in this situation, but our office policy has to be no face-to-face meetings. That said, if you do find yourself in a situation where you are going to have to do a face-to-face meeting, we are working with attorneys both in Calabasas and in Long Beach for some kind of hold harmless. Rich sent me an example of one. We're working with Laura at Risk Management to make sure that covers what she wants covered, that we would ask the agents, the sellers, the buyers, the home inspector, the termite, whoever is going to have to be at a property to sign holding us all harmless should they get sick due to something that they caught in that house, etc. But again, if you can keep away from face-to-face, please do. I've got a on Thursday wanting to meet with me face-to-face and get out of it. But it's going to happen. We're going to have to deal with it. I just got an email in the last 5 minutes from CAR. They are working with the governor right now. They're saying they're diligently trying to get him to reclassify real estate as essential. They're going to keep us posted, so keep watching your emails on their updates. But that would be a very, very welcome change to the governor's stance to let us get back to work. We're a major, major part of this economy. Other things that we had come up with, we're all in the same boat. Every listing agent, every buyer's agent is in the same boat. So try to find a way to satisfy your clients, keep them happy, keep them working with you. You are going to find clients that want to cancel or put their properties on hold. I'm advising my clients, where you were one of 10 listings 2 weeks ago, you're one of 3. Consider leaving it on the market, and we'll work out showings there somehow to make sure it works for you. And keep in mind, just as a mental thing for everybody, the mind works in black and white. The mind is gray, doesn't have an answer, doesn't have a solution. It's just going to get more and more anxiety. So give your clients a black and white answer. Don't give them what ifs. Don't give them mush. They need to have a calm and good answer from you. Give them a solution, and they'll be happy. And just keep communicating with them. Rich?
Yeah. Thanks, Richard.
Yeah.
Richard, anything to add, please?
Yes, as Meny mentioned, that I think every single MLS has stopped any input as to an open house. I think it's across the state. But if you have a virtual tour, or you are do a virtual open house if it's vacant, I want to remind you that you can promote that in syndicated remarks in the MLS. They are sent to the Zillows and the Trulias. They do not have the same MLS rules. I've confirmed this with my local board. They do not have the same MLS rules that Public Remarks has. So you can put a link in there. You can put your contact information in there. All of that. So that's a way to get around open houses. Also, I had this question this morning in regards to, we're about to close and we want to do a VP. I was on a conference call with brokers at SRAR yesterday, and this very thing came up, and it was seller occupied. The seller, the listing agent, the buyer, the buyer's agent were all on a Zoom call as the seller walked around the house and pointed everything that was done as far as what repairs that needed to be done, the condition of the house, and everybody was made satisfied. And maybe Jeff can address this once he talks, but I would assume that you fill out your VP and state that this is the way we did the VP, and everybody was satisfied, and everybody signs off on that. I think that that's a sufficient way to get around that. I also would like Jeff to, Jeff and I have had a conversation or an email exchange regarding the avids. What do you do in that case? He had a suggestion, so I'd like him to also cover that. So Richard mentioned, you have those sellers who want to take the property off the market. Yes, you can put it on hold, and that's a perfectly legitimate way to do it. With hold, you have to give a date in the future that it's going to come off of hold. You can always extend that date, that's fine, but you can also withdraw it. If you withdraw it from the MLS, it's an active listing, and you can always move it back to active. So those are two ways, and the days on market stop. So you don't have to worry about days on market. So in both those instances, the days on market stop. And that's all I had on my list. So back to you, Meny.
Thank you. Is Jeff on the line? Jeff Kahn?
I am.
Hey, Jeff. Hey, thank you for joining us, Jeff. Anything you want to add? And in addition, maybe elaborate a bit more about the governor's rules or maybe the coronavirus addendum?
Sure. Let's start first with the. First of all, can you all hear me okay?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. So first of all, with regard to the governor's rules, what Richard and Rich said is completely accurate at the moment. CAR's position as of yesterday afternoon was no in-person showings, period. But they are working with the governor to see if they can get a carve-out. I'm sure that the carve-out is not going to include things like open houses and that kind of thing, but it may include the ability to do some kind of inspections or appraisals on open escrows where you have a seller and buyer under contract. So we'll have to see what the governor's office comes up with. I don't know that that's imminent, but it may happen in the next couple of days, possibly. With regard to Rich Pisani's comments about the Avid and the walkthrough, I think that Rich, your idea on the walkthrough, or the agent's idea on the walkthrough, was great. Do it virtually. Let the seller walk around the property with a camera, and then you can fill out your verification indicating that it was done via video, and fill it out and send it off. And I think that's great. With regard to the Avid, CAR's position as of a couple days ago, and I don't think it's changed, is that if you haven't already done it, you're not to go to the house to do it, but you can get the buyer and seller to, under normal circumstances, you couldn't get them to waive it, but they're now saying that you could get the buyer and seller to waive it with a email or whatever to the buyer, indicating that you're not able to do your agent visual inspection because of the governor's stay-at-home order. However, you do have to disclose any material facts that you're aware of in an addendum. So even though you may not be using the Avid, you need to disclose anything you're aware of in writing with regard to the property. But as far as going to the property to do the Avid, right now you're not supposed to do that. And again, you get a waiver from the buyer and seller, which you normally couldn't get, but under the circumstances, that's okay. So with regard to the stay-at-home, I've heard a lot of agents say that, oh, there's a carve-out for real estate in the LA County one. That may or may not be the case, but the state stay-at-home says right in it that it supersedes any local ordinances when it's more restrictive. And as of right now, it's more restrictive. It's basically telling you, stay home. That's pretty clear. You shouldn't be doing showings in person. You shouldn't be doing open houses. You shouldn't be doing anything else. Rich and I have gone back and forth on some language for a potential hold harmless and indemnification. I don't know. He sent me something. I sent him something back last night. It sounds like the attorney for the other office is also working on it. So we should have something that you can use with your clients who insist upon letting people into the house during this stay-at-home situation. But I'm encouraging the agents not to be involved at this point in any kind of inspections or appraisals. If the buyer and the seller and the inspector or the appraiser decide to do it, that's their business. They're grown-ups. But you should be complying with the state law, and there's really no reason that you need to be at an appraisal. Now, I understand that in the past you wanted to be there to give the appraiser comps and whatever. Send the appraiser the comps. You don't need to be at the inspection. You're not doing the inspection. If the inspector and the buyer and seller want to do it, that's fine. You really shouldn't be there. If you want to be outside in your car, I've heard that suggestion. That's fine, but I don't see any advantage to being outside in your car versus being in your house. You're able to communicate by phone, etc. So with that said, I'm going to switch over to the coronavirus addendum, if you want, Meny. Is it okay to switch over to that now?
Yeah, please do. Yes.
Okay, so I have heard a tremendous amount of misinformation about that addendum. It's just everybody seems to be confused about that. So I sent Meny and Rich a 2-page clarification a couple of days ago, I think on Friday, which hopefully went out to the agents.
It did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so hopefully you all read that, but let me clarify again, and some of you may have been on the CAR call yesterday at 3 o'clock where they also clarified. The first and most important thing to mention is the form is not mandatory at all. It is not something that you as a broker mandate your clients to use. It is strictly an optional form that the buyers and sellers may choose to use if circumstances warrant the use of that form. I'm going to cover it kind of in briefly, but after I cover it, I'm going to mention three different scenarios. The first scenario is you're writing a new offer, which could still happen, and you're at the point of writing a new offer. What do you do with the form? The second scenario is you're in escrow, but the buyer still has all their contingencies in place. And the third scenario, which is the worst, of course, is the buyer's already removed their contingencies. And now what do? They're having trouble getting the loan. So before we get to the three scenarios, let's go back to the form itself. And if you look at the form, it basically says, paragraph numbered 1 says that in the event that either the buyer or the seller is unable to close the escrow due to conditions related directly to the COVID-19 situation, that the parties agree that they will extend escrow for 30 days, or you can fill in a different amount if the buyer and seller want to fill in a different amount. After which time, if the escrow still can't close because of either the buyer or seller's inability to close the escrow, then the buyer can cancel or the seller can cancel, and the buyer's deposit would go back to the buyer. So that's the way that paragraph number 1 is set up. Paragraph number 2, you'll notice, is a checkbox. Given that it's a checkbox, that means it only applies if both parties agree that the box should be checked. Now that box goes a little bit further, and that box says that if the buyer, even after the buyer removes all their contingencies, including the loan contingency, if they can't get the loan, if they're unable to get the loan because of a loss of income related directly to the COVID-19 virus, that they would have a right to cancel and still get their deposit back. Okay? Now, that is something that most buyers, of course, would probably want, and a lot of sellers probably don't want, right? They don't want, at the point in time the buyer removes their contingencies, they really don't want to give them their contingency back, correct? So if you look at paragraph, and I'm going to go through a couple more, paragraph 3 is just a paragraph that says that the parties have agreed to cancel. You know, paragraph 3 is unnecessary. You could simply use an escrow amendment that cancels the escrow. You really don't need paragraph 3, but you could use it if the parties are canceling because of the 19. And paragraph 4 is a bunch of blank lines. I want to encourage you not to fill in anything on the blank lines unless you've talked to management first about what you're writing in there, because anytime you write something in there, you run the risk that what you wrote in there wasn't clear enough and it gets you into trouble later on. So the question is, what kind of things would you write or potentially could you write in paragraph 4? Well, one of the things that was brought to my attention is, well, what if the buyer winds up canceling, but the seller has all these out-of-pocket costs? Or what if the seller's canceling because they can't get their liens paid off or whatever, and the buyer has all these out-of-pocket costs? Well, that's the kind of thing that could be written under paragraph 4, but you don't want it open-ended. If you put something in there that says the buyer will pay the seller's out-of-pocket costs or vice versa, you don't know what these buyers and sellers are to come up with out-of-pocket costs. They could come up with all kinds of ridiculous things. So you probably would need to put a cap on it. Out-of-pocket costs not to exceed blop, some amount, so that you're not, leaving it open. But before you do anything there, I would encourage you to check with Meny, just to make sure you're not putting yourself into, or not you, but your buyer and seller into a position that could get them into a problem later on and get you into a problem later on. So that's the basic addendum. Again, it's not mandatory, but let's walk through quickly the 3 scenarios. The first scenario is you're writing an offer now. I guess there will be offers written now. And if you're writing an offer now, you really need to bring that addendum to the attention of all your buyers and sellers. Not that they have to use it, you just need to make them aware that it exists, and then it's their choice whether to use it or not. I would assume that most buyers would probably want to use it at this point. Some sellers may not want to use it, some sellers will want to use it. And why would a seller want to use it? Well, because what you're thinking of normally is, oh, the buyer can't get their loan, right? But there are times when the seller won't be able to perform. What if the seller can't get the grant deed signed? What if the seller can't get their liens paid off like they normally do? What if there's a judgment they normally could get paid off, now they can't? What if there's a solar panel lease that can't be assumed? There's all kinds of reasons that the seller might not be able to close. And after all, You really don't want to put your seller into a situation where they can't close, and then the buyer turns around and sues the seller for specific performance and puts a lis pendens on the property. So even though most people look at this as a protection for the buyer, it really can go both ways, buyer or seller. So at the outset, if you're doing a new offer, you have to discuss this with your buyers and sellers. It's their choice whether to sign the form and also whether to initial or check box 2. But your duty is to explain it, or at least show them the form. If they have any questions, of course, you can't give them legal advice. They would have to check with their own legal counsel, but it's up to them to use it or not use it. Now, again, going back to why would a seller use it? Well, in the market we're in now, they're probably I'm sure there aren't as many buyers out there right now. And if you get a buyer who really wants to buy, a buyer might not be willing to buy unless they have that protection that they're going to be able to get their deposit back if they can't get their loan, if they're unable to. And so they may not be willing to go forward unless they have that addendum in place, and the seller has to make a business decision. Am I willing to take that risk, or am I willing to let this buyer walk away and try to find another buyer that won't want this protection? And you may not be able to find a buyer that wants that doesn't want that protection. So that's the first scenario. When you're writing a new offer, you really need to present that. The second scenario, and by the way, on the first scenario, let's switch now, and you're writing the offer. Okay, so you're writing an offer and you represent the buyer. What can you do besides the addendum? How about writing a longer time frame for the loan? We're used to 21 days or whatever. There's nothing that prevents you from writing a contingency period that is the length of the escrow. Now, you might get countered by the seller, of course, but you can still do it up front and see what happens. For those of you who've been around for maybe 10 or 12 years or whatever, remember the old language that used to say that the loan was contingent until funding? And we removed that years ago. And we removed it because the contingent until funding didn't give the seller any protection, that the buyer could cancel at the last minute. Well, you could actually write an offer now and put language in there that says that the loan contingency is in effect until it's funded. Nothing prevents you from doing that as a buyer. Again, the seller may counter that. Once you're in the offer, you have your contingency in place, and I would encourage buyers and buyers agents to not remove the contingency until they absolutely have to. You may get a seller who gives you a notice to buyer to perform at some point. If you get the notice to buyer to perform, guess what? You're going to have to deal with it. Maybe you can convince the listing agents, and maybe if you're a listing agent, you don't pull the trigger as quickly on that notice to buyer to perform as you used to, because you've got a buyer here who wants to buy, and you really want to boot them out and try to sell it to somebody else who's going to have the exact same problems. So I think people need to be a little slower on the trigger, giving a notice to buyer to perform. The old days of waiting 21 days or 17 days and slapping it with the notice to buyer to perform, probably not a good idea right now. So the second scenario is you're in escrow and the buyer still has all their contingencies. So if you're in escrow and the buyer has contingencies, again, if I'm a buyer's agent, I don't remove the contingencies until I have to. And if you get to the point where the seller gives you notice to perform, the buyer's got a decision to make. You can try to get the coronavirus addendum signed, but you may have a seller who doesn't want to sign that. The third scenario, which is the most difficult, is the buyers, and we've had these numerous times now, the buyers remove all contingencies. Buyers at risk, their deposits at risk, and now they can't get the loan. So what do? So the buyer probably would be more than happy to give the coronavirus addendum to the seller and have the seller sign it, but the seller probably doesn't want to sign it, right? Why would a seller want to sign something that says, okay, buyer, you remove our contingencies, but now I'm going to let you cancel if you can't get your loan? So most sellers are probably going to be reluctant to sign that. But you know what? If you've got a buyer who isn't trying to cancel, but they need more time, you don't have to use the corona addendum. What you could do is simply do an extension of time. What prevents you, if you have a buyer who says, I need 2 more weeks, if you don't use the coronavirus, why couldn't you simply do an addendum that says the escrow is extended by 2 weeks, 30 days, or whatever? Then you're not changing any of the removal of contingencies or anything. You're simply leaving it as it is, and you're extending out the escrow. Then at the end of that period of time, you got to decide what to do. Now, I will say that we don't know what the courts or what an arbitrator will do if and when a buyer is unable to close without the coronavirus addendum. They just aren't able to close. If they go to a mediation or arbitration, we don't know what's going to happen because everybody's heard the term force majeure. If you haven't heard it before, you've heard it by now, I'm sure, in the last few days. A court or an arbitrator may say, you know what, the buyer couldn't perform, so we're giving this deposit back. That may happen. I think, unfortunately, the sellers and landlords haven't quite caught up with what's happening here, because I'm seeing a lot of sellers and landlords that are just completely inflexible at this point. They just don't want to deal with it, and they want the deposit and everything. And that just may not be the appropriate approach at this point in time. So we're going to have to deal with these one by one and see how they play out. But I think that sellers need to be a little more flexible than they were in the past. And it's the old bird in the hand. If you got a buyer who really wants to close and needs a little more time, are you really going to kick them out and try to start over with a new buyer with all the obstacles you have? I mean, come on, it doesn't make any sense. So that's my 2 cents worth on the coronavirus addendum.
Yeah, Jeffy, thank you so much. That was a lot of information, and I know that we're going to have a lot of more questions as we go, only because of the circumstances, and nobody really knows what tomorrow will bring. But thank you again for that wisdom and insight. Much appreciated. I want to jump in. I want to jump to Phil Atwan. Phil, are you on the line with us?
Yes, I am, Meny. It's a pleasure to be here.
Hey, Phil. Okay, so we had a lot of questions that in the last few days from various people, if it's residential, commercial, about, hey, I'm in the middle of 1031 exchange deal right now, talking about accommodations and about time extensions and everything from A to Z. Give us some insider information about that, and how should we approach that? How should we handle that when clients right now dealing with this whole crisis as well?
That's a good question. There's a few areas I'd like to cover with that, Meny. Number one, as of right of this moment, or 10 minutes ago, there have been no extensions given by the Internal Revenue Service. We're a little more optimistic, though, that might happen because they did it with the fires. They did it with 9/11. They've had a number of times where they've extended hurricanes, especially on the East Coast when that's happened. So we're under the impression that based on past history, they might do it again. So we are just sitting on pins and needles waiting to hear from the federal government. As soon as we do, I'm gonna do an Instagram, a Facebook, and email blast as many people as I can to let them know that here are the extensions and here's who qualifies for them, and here's those who do not. So as soon as we know, we're going to make you aware of it. Nothing's changed in terms of the 45 days, and that's created a lot of anguish for so many phone calls that I've been taking. My recommendation is that when you get an offer, you want to make sure that you include the seller's intent to exchange zip form. That's a really good zip form. And you want to utilize contingencies that basically tells the seller that you want to hold at least one or 30-day or two 30-day extensions to find a replacement property in the event that, you haven't found anything. You won't release the contingency until you actually are in an escrow, agree to what the preliminary title report says, and agree to the inspection reports. So I think that might be a really good option until we see those extensions. But I don't really know what you can do beyond that, because right now the biggest issue is finding the replacement property. I kid you not, I've gotten calls over the last few days where properties are staying on the market for hours, not days, not weeks, not months, hours. And we're still seeing investors want to swallow those things up. I guess they're seeing opportunity in this market. And when there's a downside, there's an opportunity for someone. But for your listing, you've got to have some kind of language that will give them the opportunity to find a suitable replacement property for themselves. Because don't forget, the purpose for them listing their property with you is to get better cash flow return, cash on cash return. Number two, they're looking for appreciation. They may want to diversify that portfolio by going into more units, more properties, as opposed to putting their equity in one. They want to diversify that equity into multiple investment properties. And then number three, a lot of them want to buy up and create new tax write-offs. That's really important for them because the taxes are killing them between the state and the feds on ordinary income tax, not to sell, but on the rents that they collect are just huge and don't really see them going down at this point. So utilize the contingency language. Make sure you put that in your listings. For sure, counter it with the zip form. Put down whatever contingency language you want. And ultimately, I think that's going to serve you well, especially if you have some very anxious buyers who want your properties, who want a 30-day or a 7-day escrow. So that would be my number one recommendation. Any questions based on that?
I'm going to pick some questions while people are typing things in. Phil, by the way, if you don't mind, not to move the chair too much because your face is on the screen. So when you move
sorry.
a bit, it's okay. Let me see. Nothing yet. Just give us more insight.
All right.
Thank you so much.
You're on. Again, you only have 45 days from the time the sale closes to identify replacement property. That does not mean you have to be in escrow in 45 days on a replacement property. It means you submit a list of up to 3 properties and you close on any one of them and you open escrow whenever you want, either after the sale is closed or even before the sale has closed. But you have to close whatever you identify within 180 days. And by the way, if the feds give an extension, they would most likely extend 180 days to close an acquisition, which would help with these buyers and contingencies. Right. And the second thing is that obviously the number one concern is the 45 days. So to identify. So those still stay in place. One possible remedy for your agents, your clients who have cash, is to do a reverse exchange. A reverse exchange will allow them to actually close escrow on the acquisition first. They know they can sell. They're just not sure they can find a replacement property. The reverse will allow them to close the acquisition first through us. It has to be set up as a reverse exchange in escrow, and then close the sale as long as 180 days later. That they would assume, number one, they'd have to have some cash. Number two, they can bring in a lender with them. They can bring in a swing loan, a bridge loan, a line of credit, hard money, or any combination. As long as they can acquire the property they want, close it because it's a good opportunity, and then close the sale up to 180 days later. When the sale closes, we will automatically, with the escrow company and with the title company, pay off any swing loans, bridge loans, line of credit, or even cash out of pocket. So the bottom line is that they're able to maneuver and take advantage of opportunity if they find the right property first, and they can sleep better at night knowing that they found the right property or properties, and then close the sale up to 180 days later. Any questions on that? And nothing? No. Okay,
yeah,
good.
You're good.
The next item I want to talk about is marketing. The 1031 exchange is very viable right now. Even in the midst of everything that I've heard you talk about this morning, and Jeffrey and Richard, the bottom line is we're still getting lots of phone calls with people who want to initiate exchanges or who are anticipating going into escrow shortly. So those folks are still out there. The big question is who's contacting them and who's keeping in touch with these folks. Just because we're going through this coronavirus, it doesn't mean this is going to last forever, because this too shall come to an end. And the bottom line is that these investors are thinking about opportunity. And that's why I would strongly recommend, however you enjoy marketing, that you get a list of these investors' properties who've been entitled for at least 10 years on the same property, which have grown in value considerably. You can get that from your title company. You might have some in-house marketing areas to find out who owns what. But the bottom line, these absentee type farms might be the best way to get in front of folks. And I've got I've got at least 8 to 12 different pieces of marketing items that if you send me an email, I would be delighted to go ahead and email these flyers, these letters that would help you create more of a relationship with these people in regards to their cash flow, their appreciation, all the equity in the property, and ultimately how to create additional tax write-offs by utilizing the 1031 tax deferred exchange. So that's the third item I wanted to highlight this morning. I think those 3 items would be very, very, very helpful between you to bridge a relationship with these folks because they're still wanting to sell and they're still wanting to buy. The question is, how can they get around that?
Good stuff, Phil. Thank you. There's one question that came in.
Yes.
How much more is a reverse exchange now?
A reverse exchange starts at $8,000. That includes the legal department in-house who's going to be doing all the paperwork. That includes setting up the holding corporation. And that includes everything, the documents, everything. And that's from one purchase to one sale. Some people say, well, gosh, that's like $7,000 more than a regular exchange. Well, I guess my question would be, is it worth $7,000 more on an acquisition to get the right property? That answer is yes. When you're talking hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, I think that would be $7,000 well worth investing. And that's the way you look at it because it gets you what you want in a timely fashion.
Phil, what's the best email for you so people can reach out to you directly?
It's philatwan@gmail.com. PHIL, A like apple, T like tomato, W like water, A like apple, N like Nancy @gmail.com.
And I just post in the 2 platforms in Blue Jeans. You have it in the Facebook Live. You have it. Excuse me. You have it too. Look at I just put it on the comments, guys. Take a look at my last comment. Any last thought, Phil, about what other opportunities people have right now? Because are we in a crisis? Yes. Is this nationwide? No, it's worldwide, right?
Right.
But we only look right now into our bubble and what we can do to overcome that hurdle, however shape and form it's going to transform into. What other tips you can give? Because most of the viewers right now are residential agents, and they're not really dealing with people in the capacity that they're exchanging like every now and then or on a regular basis. Another one of those pieces of information.
Okay. First thing I offer, Meny, is whether it's even my deal or not, I will speak with your agents and their clients if they need to get some questions answered, because sometimes they just need someone to hold their hand and just answer all their questions to make sure that they understand what the process involves. The next thing is you're finding more and more LLCs that are beginning to list even on residential properties, and they want to be able to exchange. And that's not a problem. An LLC can do an exchange, but when you have multiple members, that creates a whole nother issue. So you have to be very, very careful. The third item I'm finding is the lenders are starting to bog down the acquisition property, the replacement property. You really need to walk through with your lender to make sure that everything's is acceptable, because this is not owner-occupied property, and it requires an investment type loan, which means the lender needs to be on board with everything, because I'm getting a lot of lender problem questions. Remember that if you're doing an exchange, you can't buy from your relative. The government does not allow that. A relative is defined as a direct lineage descendant. So your parents, your grandkids, your brothers-in-law, sisters-in-law, siblings, children, you cannot buy from. So you have to be careful with that. You also have to be careful that you can't buy the property with the intent to move in. That is not allowable by the IRS. However, if something happens in 2 years later on down the road where you need to move into it because some situations came up that were unavoidable or unpredictable, there is some wiggle room to move into the property after 2 years, but you better have a good reason and not that you plan to do it, because if the IRS figures that out, you've got a problem. One call that I took this morning is that the seller wanted to carry back. Anytime a seller carries back, that's taxable. The seller's doing the exchange, the seller has to reinvest all the cash from the sale into the acquisition. And number two, if there was any mortgage or loan that was paid off at the close of the sale, they are required to reborrow that same amount or more into the acquisition. That's what equal or greater means. Replacement of cash, replacement of debt on the sale. If there is well, I think that should probably, I can overload you with information.
No, that's
but
it's amazing.
That might be enough for now.
It's good info, and I drop your email in both platforms, so you're gonna probably expect a lot of information back to you. Phil, thank you so much for sharing.
It's always a pleasure, Meny. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Now let's jump into our training and education and coaching ladies. Stephanie, Deborah, feel free to jump in and share. I know that you have a few slides that you want to talk about. Stephanie, you're part of the Tom Ferry's coaching.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, Tom Ferry coaching. Anything you want to share with us?
Yeah, no, absolutely. We had a huge conference. Well, actually, we've been having a ton of coaching calls with guest speakers and stuff, since last Thursday to address all the massive changes and everything that we are all experiencing. And just wanted to say at the beginning that, gosh, we are getting amazing intel here on this meeting. I'm taking notes like crazy. And this is a time for all of us, to be difference makers, to educate our clients, friends, family, the whole sphere, to be adaptive, to pivot and to shift. We're the calming factor, right? And it's all about over communicating. We can't communicate enough with with our communities and everybody involved. So messaging the data and the facts to everyone, and we want to make sure that we're providing, solid facts, right? And what we are experiencing is unprecedented, and we're going based off history the best we can, and the analogy of past events, right? So please keep in mind something, the charts that we'll share, we just have like 4 slides, that everything is changing minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day, etc. So what I'm sharing is like an appraisal, right? It's only good at the time of the appraisal. Fair enough?
So let's go over the slides for a second, if you don't mind. Just run through them and tell us what we're looking at.
Yeah. So, like I said, I wanted to address the slides here. So, basically, not part of this slide is talking about the interest rates, so on and so forth. But yeah. So the last. Well, we don't have the slide on the symbiotic relationship between the Treasury rate and the mortgage rate, but it is the first time in history where the Treasury dropped and the mortgage rate did not. So we do expect, quite a bit of volatility, but we anticipate that over maybe the next couple of weeks, but the environment is looking favorable. So as you can see here, recession does not equal housing crisis. So in this particular slide here, it indicates, we had in 2001, we are not seeing the same position. They're looking at this as an event cycle and not a crash. Even after 9/11, we saw, as you see, the 6.6, we saw annual home appreciation after that. So the analogy, a lot of the economists, et cetera, are using the analogy from 9/11 and .com into story as to what is happening today. So, after 2008, it was a financial crisis. And I'll go into a little bit more details about how the 3 years preceding that as to what was going on. So we definitely learned from the 2008 crash. Leading up to it, the total home equity cash out in the 3 years leading up to the crash was astronomical, $824 billion. People were basically using their homes as ATMs. Okay, so Now, right, we're in a stronger position. The 3 years leading up to what has happened now is almost $600 billion less in home equity cashed out. So that also helps us in the in not having this be a housing crisis. Now, one thing that I did want to share with you, 30% of the homes in this country have no mortgages, which is amazing. And 50% of the homes in the country have more than 50% equity. So even if there is a dip in prices, the housing market can withstand it. So remember, we're, obviously everything is going to be dependent upon how long this lasts, but if this is an event and not a collapse. So experts believe that this is not a housing crash, and obviously will be determined on how long it lasts. The economists don't see the wave of REO, so I'll address this median income needed to purchase a median priced home. Because the economists don't see the wave of the REOs because based on the 60-day moratorium for foreclosures and evictions, the stimulus that I know that hopefully they're agreeing on all that stuff today and get an agreement, but their stimulus payment as a percentage of income as low as 15.5%. The historic norm is 21.2%. This is basically the amount of money they have to pay towards their mortgage is considerably less. And then the fourth slide, low inventory. Before the crash in 2008, we had 8.2 months of inventory. And today we have 3.1. And some of that can vary depending upon what part of the countries that we're in. So as you can see, we're definitely in a different financial state before the crash in 2008. So here again, it's showing what the appreciation, the annual home price appreciation was after the dot-com and 9/11. So just to reiterate, Goldman Sachs and Wells Fargo concur that we'll probably have negativity through into the second quarter with a strong outlook moving forward for the third quarter and on. The people that are being laid off will get their jobs back as we will need it and the demand will be there. Yes, we are going to lose productivity, but we'll go back to normal and demand will come rushing back. And like I said, the economists and experts are stating that this is an event and not a crash.
Good stuff, Stephanie. Great information. And yes, whoever was asking, we are gonna share those slides with you, so you can use it for your own, information. Maybe share with clientele, whatever you need to do with that. Let's jump to Holly. Holly Meny. Hey, Holly.
How's it going, everyone? Okay, good morning. Meny, do you want me to go first or do you want to go first?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So good morning, everyone. I know we're spending plenty of time on social media, so I'm just going to touch bases with this really quick. We've had fantastic speakers this morning. Thank you, everyone, for being here and for sharing your knowledge. I just feel so proud to be part of this team. So congrats, everyone, for we're making it through. Okay, so let me try to screen share here for a minute. Okay, I'm not sure if this is going to work. Okay, so basically I just wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about the command ads. I've been contacting some of our agents and we're seeing great results about those right now. So I don't know how many of you guys have run an ad through your command right now. I'm going to be doing some training this Thursday virtually at 2 o'clock, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the highlights and the benefits and really how to leverage your social media right now during this time to be able to maintain in contact with your database and your sphere. So I actually contacted one of our agents here, the Green Team. They're absolutely fantastic group of people. They more recently just started leveraging these Facebook ads through command. So separately, they were running them on the Facebook Ads Manager. Oh, perfect. Do you have an example, Meny? I had one that we ran the other day.
Not yours, but I mean, I can go to campaigns just to share with you guys. This is the screen. This is how KW Command looks like. And Just to kind of express more on what Holly's saying, we are doing right now everything remotely, everything virtually, or even if you're running into someone 6 feet apart, right? So this is the best time, more than ever, if you were resisting to it or if you didn't have time for it or whatever, to make Kelly your BFF and make KW Command your virtual assistant. Really learn, dive deep into those pieces, and what we're going to do more and more of, and Holly's going to promote her session. We're going to share that information. We're going to do those live broadcasts, so we can teach you, and Kim will do it with Patricia as well, our agent services ladies. So there's more to learn. So take advantage, because there's so much value to give.
Absolutely. Hey, Meny, I think I figured out the screen share. So I just want to show everyone this really quick. So
take over the screen if you can.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay,
Thank you.
yay, fantastic. So, like I said, we were talking about the green team earlier. They were one that really shared their success with us. So, I reached out to Nicole, who of course got a hold of Eric Green as well, and they just shared some of their thoughts. So, like I said, they'd been running Facebook ads through Ads Manager before, and very recently, and they joked even reluctantly, started really adopting Command and looking at what its features were. So they decided to do a little bit of a test run in the Command Facebook ads. Again, they were running them through Facebook, but now just decided to run it through the Command portal. So as you guys can see here on their screen, this is an image shot of an example of what an ad would look like when you're sponsoring a specific property. So this is one of their listings right here. They do have a lot of fantastic things that I'll go over, like adding in emojis is going to get a higher impression rate, making sure you're using very descriptive words, which I'll talk about on Thursday. But let me just let you know what they're doing and what kind of results they're seeing. So they're running their ads about 7 days, right? So they're spending anywhere between $25 to $35. Okay. So as a total from this ad, they've received 49 leads. Okay. Now that's 49 names, numbers, emails, everything. And this was all in 30 days. They ran 3 different campaigns. So Nicole gave me a little bit of feedback. She said, we're having great conversations with these people. They received 2 showings from about 10 of the leads they were following up with. All others got added onto their drip campaign. Emails and phone numbers have all been good. And I know sometimes as realtors, we get these leads. They're bogus phone numbers. They're bogus names. So these are actual real people. So this campaign in particular you're seeing right here, they spent $20 on. Okay, so to speak a little bit of Facebook language here, on this ad, they had 1,550 impressions for $20. They had 215 clicks on the link and received 28 leads. Okay, they got 2 showings directly because of this ad that they ran. Now, all that only cost them $20. So this is something that if you guys aren't leveraging this in your business right now, you're really missing out on a boat. Don't let this technology overwhelm you. We as your team are here. Meny's here, Kim's here, Patricia's here to help make this palatable. We'll walk you through step by step. We'll help you create this. But this is a great way right now to get more leads and to really get a jump start on your business.
Thank you so much. That was great information, Holly.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. That was great. Let me just share. Can you see my team meeting presentation shared, Holly?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, great. So one thing I want to share, and we right now we just picked kind of like from all over the place different email blasts that were sent by different agents out there, and we're gonna piece it together and send it to you. Some kind of valuable email you can send out to your sphere, your clientele, your neighbors, your friends, with different links. We're going to build this on MailChimp. So you can, use your own MailChimp, or you can maybe even just copy paste the content that we're going to send you. Just change the wording as you want, and just copy paste to your own email, right? Gmail, whatever, Outlook, it's fine. It's going to work as well. And just reach out and just say, hey, I'm here to offer you value. I think I got a feeling that people got, to a certain extent, not to take anything away from this crisis, but kind of fed up from getting those coronavirus emails every day from this person, that person. We know that there's a virus. Okay, they know that there's an issue out there, right? So let's share. Let's come from different place and share different resources. And so they're gonna see us more of a once again valuable resource, not just another someone that is there to harass them, or to remind them how horrible that life is, right? So our job right now more than ever is to inspire, to encourage, and to do more of, right? Having said that, I don't know if we got all the information, but we just want to give a shout out to a few agents that recently closed, some deals, even though everything is, going on, that they're able to save those deals or just, buyers that want to close and sellers that want to sell. So out of the Calabasas office, congrats, Eileen, Rodriguez, Allison, Jordan, Omi, Debbie, Denise, and Mary, Jordan, Shelly, congratulations, Robbie, congrats as well. Coastal, I know it's not all the information. We didn't get everything on time. Tom, Sergio, congrats as well. In Open Escrow, we had in the Calabasas office, Nidia, Rich Pisani, Hengame, David Abbas. Once again, it's not everybody, but we just want to give a shout out to you guys and say, good job, and keep. We're gonna keep doing that. If you saw this morning, both offices, Coastal in Calabasas, we send at the top of the morning email, congrats on closings, openings. The idea is to just to show everybody, show the world, show us, one another, that we're still doing business, and things still happening. So, and we're here to share more information. We're not going to pitch listings right now live, but all of you have access, and many of you right now, dozens right now, watching us live on KW Shares. We're going to expand this platform to more and more KWs out there. Use this platform to let us know about your wants and needs. Okay, let us know what's going on so we can help one another to do more of, especially right now. That's a great safe platform, and let's keep it like that. On a different note, one thing I do want to share with you is I just want to give a shout out and send our love and prayers to Linda White. She's a Calabasas agent. She kept it to herself, but she gave me the thumbs up to share with those who doesn't know. She's going right now through a series of chemo sessions. Today is the first. Actually, as we speak right now, that's her first chemo right now, and it's never there's never a good timing to go through chemo. She was laughing about it, but especially right now. So naturally, we cannot go and visit her and see her. She's going to be a few days just kind of like under strict supervision. But I just want you to reach out to her, send her a text, send her a Facebook message, tell her how much we love her, and she know that we're here to support her, and she know that we're here to be here for her, whatever she needs. She's together with her son, is there with her to support her. So just I wanted to share with you. Linda, we love you if you're watching us or going to watch us later. And once we know how to help, we're going to let you guys know. But just for now, just reach out and tell her how much you love her, and we're all here for her. So thank you, everybody. My screen got frozen for a second over here. Let me hold on for a second. Anybody from okay, my screen is back. My screen is back. Anybody from our ALC members? Anybody, whoever's on the line, if you want to unmute yourself and share something with us, leadership team, anybody, if you have anything to share.
Yeah, it's Allison. Can you hear me?
Allison? Yes.
Hey, good morning. I just wanted to, I shared this this morning on the mindset thing. One of my clients was planning on moving to Texas, and they bought a house yesterday, and they're closing by the end of March. So people still are buying. I thought that was very encouraging, and yeah, it's only a referral fee to me, but I thought that was very encouraging.
Yeah, good input for sure. Thank you for sharing this. Yeah. Anybody else on the LC that is on the call? Happy to be on the call. Want to share something? Okay, so we're almost done. Oh, anybody? Hello?
Yeah, it was me. Just saying, going back to Zomid, going back to what Allison said. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Going back to what Allison said, I had a client that right when everything was going down, reached out, is in the lender process, the lender's on board. So yeah, things are moving forward, and staying in touch with clients. And I don't know where I saw it, that once this all blows over, staying on top and staying in touch with the clients now, when everything comes back, is going to be crucial, and you're going to be in the front lines of whatever they want to do when that happens. So yeah, that was about it. Just a couple of quick cents.
Thanks, Omid, and congrats on the closing with Debbie.
Thank you. Congrats to Debbie on that.
Yeah. So just to share, just to glance through that, make sure that you look at the training calendar. Naturally, we transition everything right now online. This is the Calabasas one. This is the Long Beach one, and we might make a few more adjustments as we go, only because we're going to share resources, and we're going to team up on the classes that we're going to offer you guys, so both offices can log in at the same time, view at the same time. We are sometimes going to use maybe different platform to have more capacity of viewers at the same time, or we're just going to broadcast live on our KW Shares group. So just stay tuned on that. Just to break the ice a little bit and have some fun, because we needed to a few pictures that kind of like we picked up online from you guys. That's an amazing toilet paper cake. Forgot to share that, but that's kind of brilliant. Definitely want to use that one. and then some funny images. Let's just keep a lot of alcohol out there for sure. Drake, good job, man.
The perfect gift right now is a bottle of wine with a roll of toilet paper on top.
Well, who is that? Alison Van Wijk?
Yes.
Yeah, Ali. Yeah, for sure. That's a very smart gift for sure. But yeah, just keep sharing, keep having fun, keep it positive. We did pick the picture of the week, which was Ronnie Noel. I don't think he's on the call. He was actually watching us on Instagram, but that's like a typical spouse look at the back and the kids somewhere in the room. I think that was kind of like the funniest of the week. So probably a lot of you can know what he's going through. And you win this, Ronnie. Congratulations, 4-pack of ultra strong toilet paper. You know, you can listen to Van Wig's recommendation and give it to as a gift to your clients. Guys, that's all we had. I want to thank you for taking the time and and joining the call. And now we can see all the beautiful faces and all the names and everybody. Thank you for joining us on Facebook Live. Thank you for joining us on the Blue Jeans app, and we're gonna share more and more of that. I'm gonna keep the recording. I'm gonna broadcast the recording later on, so you guys will have access. Keep engaged. Keep in touch with one another. Stay in touch with your sphere, family, friends, co-workers. Now more than ever, agents, different companies, different organizations, different areas come together, gap every I don't know issues that we had. We all the same color. We all the same challenges. Let's show the world right now. You lead by example and show right now more than ever what value you have. So stay tuned to what we're gonna do next. And once again, thank you to our speakers, Phil Atwan. Thank you, Jeff Kahn, our attorney. Thanks, Rich Pisani, Richard Dascom. Thank you, Holly. Thank you, Deborah, Stephanie, and thank you as well. And I didn't miss anybody? I don't think so. Okay, thank you. And guys, have a great day, productive day, and we'll talk soon. Stay in touch. Be safe. Be well. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Manny.
Thanks. It was excellent.
That was a really good meeting, Manny. Thank you.
Thanks, Manny.
Yeah, it was real nice.
Is it getting better? Or do you feel the same? Will it make it easier on you?